What if the world tries to punish you just for surviving? What if you are beaten even before you turned 18 and the world looks at you like you are some serious villain and a threat to society? Today in Women's Wrongs, we will discuss the story of Cyntoia Brown, a woman who had to suffer the worst of human beings when she was a little girl. I wanted to discuss her story because I think there are multiple things that need to be addressed, and this is not just a one-off case. This is about a system that fails little girls one after the other after they have been failed by everyone else in their life. Now let's go back a little and start with Cyntoia's grandmother, Joanne. She appeared in the Netflix documentary Murder to Mystery, the Cyntoia Brown story. She shared deeply personal recollections. She candidly spoke about the cycle of trauma in her family. She plays a very important role in understanding Cyntoia's story because she represents where the cycle of trauma in the family began. Joanne shared in interviews and in the Netflix documentary that she herself was a victim of abuse. Her daughter, Georgina Mitchell, who is Cyntoia's biological mother, was actually born as a result of that Joanne suffered. Joanne spoke honestly about how she struggled with raising her children, admitting that she didn't always know how to break the cycle of pain. In fact, she said, "If I had been as educated then as I am now, I probably would not have had my children and put them through what they have gone through." Her words highlighted just how much generational trauma shaped Cyntoia's life even before she was born. So when we talk about Cyntoia Brown, we are not just talking about her as an individual. We are talking about a family history of addiction and survival that goes back to her grandmother. Now let's talk about Cyntoia Brown's mother, Georgina Mitchell, and her life was very tragic too. From when she was 6 years old to when she was 10 years old, she was by a man who was a relative of her neighbor. He was called Walter. He used to meet her in different places and then give her $20. According to her, her own mother sent her there for money. Imagine the mental state of a young girl going through this. And the sad part, parents setting up daughters for is way too common, and I was shocked when I first heard of it. In India, there are a few castes where the daughter has to enter this industry as soon as possible, and her own parents prepare her for this. Now, a lot of Indian feminists who are very privileged support this, calling it culture, the culture of the marginalized. Can you imagine? And don't worry, I asked them what they think of Sati because that was also culture. Then they don't say anything, but we'll let it go for now because this topic deserves a video on its own. Back to Cyntoia's story. When people hear about these generations of women suffering, they conclude that this is genetic, that these are troubled women and this is in their blood. And this to me is the most offensive thing ever. These women were sold, humiliated. They were not even given a single chance at better life. They had systems and industries set just to exploit them. They are generational victims of this industry that exists only and only because of patriarchy, and calling it genetic is the worst form of victim blaming I have ever seen. Cyntoia's mother, Georgina, was obviously growing up in a very, very unstable house. She was only 16 when she got pregnant and had Cyntoia. She was heavily drinking during this pregnancy. She got involved in. She was robbed and beaten. After Cyntoia was born, Georgina was still drinking, doing drugs, and because of the drugs and she fell into a lot of legal trouble. This she had to make a very difficult decision to relinquish the custody of Cyntoia because she could not provide a nice stable environment for her. Cyntoia was placed for adoption when she was around 2 years old. She was adopted by Elinette Brown and her husband Reverend Thomas Brown. They provide a stable and loving home for Cyntoia. She also had to go to an alternate school, but Cyntoia struggled due to her early trauma, including being born to a teenage mother who used drugs during her pregnancy, being exposed to and instability before her adoption. Cyntoia ran away from this house when she was only 16 years old. Now comes the worst part. Cyntoia had a boyfriend called Garion McLaughlin who was 24 years old, and his nickname on the street was Cutthroat. He was very towards Sintoya. He used to beat her up and they used to get high all the time. But he also used to prostitute her and basically he became her. He used the lover boy method to recruit her into prostitution. The lover boy method is a very common technique used by pimps to get women into prostitution. In the beginning, the relationship feels like a dream. The boyfriend pampers, gives generous gifts, and makes her feel like the most special person in the world. And the girl thinks that she has found the one. But once the girl has believed this, the lover boy starts to isolate her from the world. After this first mind blowing phase, financial problems start arising. He has a huge debt, some family member is stuck in hospital, he's poor victim of the world. Now, because the lover boy has been generous before, the girl feels like she needs to help. She loves this guy and does not want to see him in trouble. So she starts to do what he says. Reminder that these girls are young and naive. They don't understand the world yet. They just want love. He asks the girl to be high all the time, asking her to bring money from somewhere, puts the girl in debt. Now the girl is stuck and she has to herself to get money because that was not her boyfriend at all. That was just a all the illusion of the perfect boyfriend, the perfect relationship shatters. But now it's too late. Now the reality is clear because he's not pretending anymore. Not every uses chains. Some use I love you and start with roses and gifts only to take it all away. The victims don't realize that they are victims in the beginning and that is why they don't leave. But when they realize what's happening, they cannot leave. In the August of 2004, Cyntoia Brown is on the streets again to get some money for her boyfriend. That is when she meets Johnny Allen. Johnny Allen is a 43-year-old man. He goes to church, teaches Bible study, and according to his family and friends, he's a very good man. But what I tell you next will paint a very different picture of him. Johnny Allen picked young Cyntoia from the street, negotiated a price, and took her home. Because we constantly talk about a woman's character, we constantly talk about what kind of a woman she must be to be there on the streets and go home with a man and be a runaway. But just for a second, let's focus on this man. This is a 43-year-old man. According to his friends and family, is a very good man. But he was purchasing consent with money from a little girl. What kind of a respectable man would ever do that? If I now ask you about his character, would you say he's a good person or a bad person? Would you say he's characterless? Would you say he's harmful for society or not? Cyntoia was clearly a very young girl and this man was ready to buy her consent. What did he think of women? What did he think of young girls? Why did he think that he could just buy women's consent? Where did that idea come from in his mind? Why? Basically, my point is, why did he think this was an okay thing to do? People constantly judge women and girls for smallest of things. But the character of a man is never up for judgment. Let's continue with the story. So he took Cyntoia to his house where according to her he was talking about guns when they were sitting at the dining table. And when he asked to go to his room, they were both laying in his bed and he turned around and because he had spoken so much about guns before, she was frightened. And because he turned, she thought he'll pick up a gun and shoot her. Before he could do that, she picked up a gun and shot him. Now we don't know if he was really going to shoot her or not, but she definitely got scared and thought that he would shoot her. She was just a child and because she had seen so much violence in her life, she definitely thought he would shoot her. She took a few things from there and fled the scene. 2 days after that, Cyntoia was arrested. She was in Nashville, Tennessee at Davidson County Juvenile Detention Center where she was kept. She was charged with first-degree aggravated robbery and other very serious charges. Now what happens in the US is there are laws that allow juveniles to be tried as adults for serious offenses. If she was tried in juvenile court, she would get all the help that she needed, and if she was tried as an adult, then she would have to get life in prison. She would get 51 years. The most heartbreaking part of this case is when the psychologists were trying to evaluate her. They were trying to prove that she's not in her right mind and she really thought that Johnny was going to kill her. In the Netflix documentary, they were talking about a specific test called the thematic apperception test. What happens in this test is that the psychologist shows the patient a series of ambiguous pictures. The patient is asked to tell a story about what they think is happening in that picture and what led up to it, what people are thinking and feeling in the picture, and what might happen next. The idea is that the person will project their own feelings, conflict, and experiences into the story, revealing hidden thoughts and themes from the life. Clearly, Sintoya was talking about violence and harassment and racism, full survival mindset. But that was so heartbreaking because you know that that is what she had seen before in her life, and that is why she was talking about it. That girl needed some serious help and urgent support, but none of that mattered. The judges decided that she would be tried in the adult court, and in the adult criminal court, they found her guilty on all counts. That means that she would have to be in prison for 51 years. This is completely insane to me because first of all, trying her in adult code and not juvenile code as if she's danger to the society was not fair at all. She needed help. She did not need to be in prison like that. She was just a little girl. But it was 2006 and they put her in the adult code. She was 16 when she was given this sentence, and she would only be eligible for parole when she would be 69 years old. We are talking about a child victim over here. They obviously filed for appeal, and the appeal hearing was in 2012, 8 years after she was incarcerated. But no luck, she was still in prison with the same hard sentence. Her case inspired a major legal reform in Tennessee that took effect in 2011, known as the Safe Harbor Law. This law made it illegal to charge a minor, anyone under the age of 18, with prostitution. Instead of being treated as criminals, minors found in such situations must now be recognized as victims of sex trafficking and directed to support services. Before this, Tennessee law allowed children to be arrested and prosecuted for prostitution, even if they were exploited by the because the law was a direct response to the injustice Sintoya faced. She was only 16, a victim of trafficking, yet they tried and sentenced her as an adult. Her story sparked a national outrage and led advocates to push for a system that protects exploited children rather than punishes them. The 2011 law was a turning point in showing that state shows minors through a protective, not punitive lens. At this time, Sintoya's case was well known in the legal and activist circles, but it had not reached the global spotlight yet. Now comes the best part. The part that makes me hopeful for the future. I've always looked at the internet as a very unsafe place for women. I've always criticized social media and how they tackle women's safety. But I realized that it is just another public place and we should try our best to reclaim it. We can use internet like it was used in this case. The hashtag campaign Free Sintoya Brown got celebrity attention in 2017. It got support from big celebrities like Rihanna and Kim K. Rihanna posted about Sintoya on her Instagram, and when that post was going viral, the Safe Harbor law had already been passed, which was largely thanks to the efforts of her legal team, activists, and organizations like End Slavery Tennessee. Everyone worked hard and worked together to free Sintoya. The viral movement had already sparked groundswell of public pressure on the Tennessee legal system. At the same time, Sintoya's legal team had already filed appeals and a clemency petition. A clemency petition is basically a formal request for mercy. It is a legal document that asks the government to reduce someone's sentence or even forgive their conviction. At the federal level, only president can grant clemency, but at the state level, like in Tennessee, it's the governor who has that power, usually after reviewing the recommendations from a parole board or clemency board. Clemency can take different forms: a commutation, which shortens or reduces a person's sentence, a pardon, which forgives the crime altogether, or a reprieve, which delays a sentence. In February 2019, Tennessee Governor Bill Haslam granted Sintoya Brown clemency. He commuted her life sentence to 15 years, recognizing her extraordinary transformation behind bars. Sintoya had earned her degrees, mentored other inmates, and completely changed the direction of her life. Governor Haslam ordered her release for 7th August 2019, exactly 15 years after she had first entered the prison. decision. The decision was celebrated across the country by activists, legal experts, and human rights groups who saw it as a powerful movement of justice and hope. I love this so much because I remember Rihanna posting about it. I remember how the Twitter looked and how so many people joined the Free Cyntoia campaign. And when it was going viral, I was on the internet, I was looking at it. And I remember how happy everyone was when she finally got out in 2019. All women everywhere were happy and celebrating her release. After her release, she married a Christian rapper called Jamie Long. She became a public speaker, an author, and an advocate for criminal justice reform. She even published a memoir titled Free Cyntoia, where she shares her journey from victimization to now activism. Her case remains a turning point in how justice system and public consciousness view trafficking of minors, especially black girls in the legal system in US. Today she seems really happy and content with her life. I visit her Instagram from time to time and she posts about her husband's cooking videos, shares pictures of her mother, and it makes me very happy looking at her smiling and thriving, living the life that she truly deserves. But I can't help also feel sadness. When Cyntoia was a child in desperate need of help, support and guidance, the system sent her to prison instead. She should have been protected, but she wasn't. Still, I'm grateful that at least now she's free, and I wish her nothing but happiness, health and peace for the rest of her life. I hope she continues to shine, and I hope that every girl like her who has ever been failed by the system finds freedom, healing and joy too.